to Happily Ever After, the podcast where we talk about life's big stories. From breakups and breakdowns to icky secrets and happy endings, it's the stuff that makes us human. I'm your host, Hannah Harvey. I'm a writer and a parenting blogger at mumsdays.com. That's mumsdays.com. I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe and leave a review because it basically means more people can find the podcast. And I also really love hearing from you, so please do contact me through Instagram at mumsdays with any of your stories really and you know how you relate to the episode or even questions that you may want answering. You can find all the details from this episode in the show notes. Hello and welcome to Happily Ever After. It's me, Hannah, and today I'm joined by someone who is as synonymous with lockdown as PE with Joe. It's Rob Biddulph. Hi, Rob.
Hi. It's funny you should say that about Joe because you're right. You're totally right. I mean, everyone would do PE with Joe at 9 and then draw with Rob at 10. And I actually, a couple of years ago, I was doing where was it? The Bath Literary Festival, and Joe and I were on kind of consecutively. So I got to meet him
Oh
in the
my
green room. And it
God.
was really fun. We were like, we should have been on, payroll, school payroll, because we were like doing childcare every morning
You
in our
really
lockdown.
were.
Yeah. But he's such a nice guy. He's such a nice guy.
And well, we took part in the largest online art lesson. Do you still
Oh yeah,
hold that record?
I do. As far as I know, at least I do. I don't think anyone's broken it yet. And I still see, I do my live events now, and kids bring their folders full of all the drawings that they did with me during lockdown, and they've got their world record T-shirts that they got and their certificates that I signed for them and everything. So it still kind of looms large, I think, in people's lockdown memory, particularly the world record whale drawing. And I love to see it. There's still a few when I go on the dog walk with my dog. I still see a few they're quite yellowed now, but I still see a few of the kind of the whale drawings in people's windows and things. So it's really
Really?
lovely.
Wow. And so why did you start all that?
Well, it was a I can't tell you how, first of all, I can't tell you how surreal the whole Draw with Rob phenomenon has been for me, right? Because this is literally, I'll tell you how it happened. It was a Sunday night. I was sitting on the sofa watching the news with my wife, and they said on the news, so this was back in March of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, right, we're going to close the schools next week. And so my first thought was, right, there's going to be lots of children at home looking for things to do, young children, my age group, the kids that read my books, kind of key stage one kids. They're going to be stuck at home looking for things to do. Actually, what I thought was there's going to be lots of parents of key stage one kids looking for things to give their children to do while they're at home. And I thought, well, I can help here. At my live events, I always do a draw along of one of my characters. I've even done some video draw alongs before, and a few years previously. And I thought, what I'll do, I'll just video myself drawing one of my characters, like maybe a couple of times a week, and it might keep kids busy for an hour or two, in that week. So that was the Sunday. The Monday, I recorded the first video. Tuesday, I put it up on YouTube. And I'm not joking, on the Wednesday, so many thousands of people had watched this video that I was on news at 10 that night. I can't tell you how surreal it was. And I just started getting sent, thousands and thousands of pictures of children holding up their drawings. And it was amazing. It was really amazing because you remember what it was like. It was a very uncertain time. There was lots of anxiety around. But my social media feeds just sort of became this kind of this joyous oasis of happy pictures in this kind of desert of despair and worry. I was getting sent these lovely pictures of children drawing and happy parents who were actually sitting down and drawing with their kids for the first time in years because they had time to do it. And so it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, this thing. And it became a bit of a runaway train, actually. I was just trying to do as many videos as I could during that first couple of years of lockdown. But it's great. I
The
love it.
first couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
what
still
fun
doing
we
them now.
had.
I'm still doing the videos now. Not as regularly. I do one every month or 6 weeks or something like that, and I
Yeah.
still get thousands of people watching them, and I get sent pictures every single day. I get sent quite a few drawings from kids still. So it's that's what I really love because I think it sort of started this. uh, reawakening really in children about the simple pleasures in life. You don't have to sit in front of a screen all the time. Although that being said,
You do
I'm
if you
usually
want
on
to
a
do your
yeah,
thing.
I am
Yeah.
on a screen. But they're actually doing something with their hands, and they're making, they're starting with a blank sheet of paper and ending up with a drawing that they're proud of. And I feel very proud of the fact that they're doing that. It's
Yeah, I
great.
think you should be. We used to cover the whole table with, because at the time my daughter was like 18 months old, so I'd cover the whole table with paper,
Oh, fab.
and then we'd all
I
sit
think you
down and
sent,
have
yeah,
a,
you sent me
yeah.
a picture actually. It's great. Yeah, 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 I
And
saw
I was
that.
like, oh my God, I can draw.
I know.
And it looks like
That's the thing.
Rob's.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone, so many people, all of when I do festivals and things, I say how many people don't think they're very good at drawing. All these hands go up. And I say, well, why do you think that? Drawing's not like maths, right? There's no right or wrong answer with drawing. It's just all about, it's subjective drawing. And if you look at the great artists, if you go to the Tate Modern or something, you'll see so many different styles. Yes, you see the Renaissance art, which is photorealistic, beautifully rendered paintings, but you also see all the kind of impressionist stuff, which is much more just about translating what the artist is feeling inside and putting it onto a piece of paper or a piece of canvas. And that's what we can all do. That everyone can draw. I honestly do believe that. I think a lot of it is about confidence, which is where with the Draw with Rob stuff I come in, because we do this, the step-by-step drawing, and then by the end of it everybody has got something that maybe they didn't think they would be able to do, because we've broken it down into bite-sized pieces. But then
Mm-hmm.
thereafter, especially with children, they kind of go off and they do their own drawings using some of the things, the techniques that they've learned with me. But then they invent their own characters and stuff, and that's what I really, really love. But I'm sure your drawings were fabulous.
Thanks, they were. No, I did. I really enjoyed doing it.
Oh,
And something I noticed with my son is he feels like he hates art,
right.
or at least he did around that period. And then just little bits of, trying a few different things, because it's definitely confidence and feeling
It is.
like you have something that you'd even want to put onto paper that's
Yeah.
worthwhile. So just breaking down the barrier to actually putting a pencil onto paper is huge.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one thing that happens as children get older, when they get to sort of about 9 or 10, there's usually somebody in their class who is, the good drawer. And I think, therefore, children, even at that young an age, they sort of apply labels to themselves, and they tell themselves, actually, I can't draw.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stop. Sort of about 9, 10, they sort of stop really drawing for pleasure, which, if you see 4 or 5 year olds, they just pick up a crayon, they don't care, they just draw and they just love it, and they don't care really what the picture looks like. But as they get older and more self-aware and self-critical, that's when they stop. And I think that's a real shame. I was having lots of adults were joining in with me during lockdown, saying this is the first time I picked up a pencil since I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really loving it again, because it's about confidence and self-expression, and not feeling too uh, I just too critical of yourself,
Yeah.
just being kind of letting yourself kind of express whatever you're feeling inside and sticking it down on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like so it's been a few years since I read Peanut Jones, and I remember that being a theme at the beginning of the first book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I actually wrote it before lockdown. I actually
Did
wrote the
you?
first book was before um, the first lockdown. But yeah, there's so many of the themes in that book are kind of played out over lockdown, really, about the importance of art and expressing yourself, and you know, confidence in your ability to express yourself too. Um, yeah, but the reason I started writing the Peanut Jones books, basically you write, well, I do anyway, you kind of write from my own experience, some kind of what things that happen to me. That's what they often make their way into my books.
Mm-hmm.
And the peanut thing started with when my youngest daughter, Poppy, was first starting at school proper after nursery. She was really, really nervous about staying at school for lunch. It was, you know what kids are like. It becomes they get obsessed with certain details. So she was kind of fine with doing, staying at school to do her maths and English and all that stuff. But she was really worried about lunchtime, because up until then, I think she'd always come home for her lunch. So I decided on day one of school, I would draw her a little picture on a post-it note and hide it in her lunchbox, So when it got to lunchtime, she was feeling worried. There'd be a little message, a little picture and a message saying, "Hi, Poppy," from Dad, make her feel better. And she came home from school after day one and she said, "Dad, I loved it. What are you going to draw for me tomorrow?" I
Oh
was like, "Oh,
no.
okay, I'm doing it again." Okay, so I did one the next day. The next day she came home and said, "Oh, not only did I love it, but all of my friends and all of the teachers at school, they all want to know what you're going to draw tomorrow." So I was like, "Oh my God." So then I drew the next day and the next day and the next day. And you know what? I ended up doing a drawing every single day that she was at primary school for 7 years, right? So ended
That's
up
like
doing two and a
Elf on
half.
the Shelf
It's
gone
crazy.
crazy.
There was 2.5. I've done 2,500 of these drawings. If your listeners want to, if you just search hashtag pack lunch post it, you will see the madness in full effect because it's crazy. And I was sort of at one point it went a bit viral. It was a weird thing. Ashton Kutcher, right, somehow saw it somewhere and retweeted it, and
Of
it
course
just
it
went
did.
mad. I was interviewed on ABC News about it, and so it just went properly viral. Another thing that went a bit viral, and so because there was so many people seeing, I was really putting effort in. I was really trying to make because I was posting them on my socials by this point,
Yeah.
and so you'll see. I mean, there was the difficult thing was trying to think of things to draw every day because after about one half term, I'd drawn every single children's character I could think of. So I used to do themes. So I remember one term I did like the great artists. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea because, what happens is you sort of forget to do the drawing, right? And so you remember at 11:30 at night just before you go to bed. And you're like, oh no, so I'm drawing, the Mona Lisa on a post-it note, 11:30 at night. But anyway, I digress because that's where the idea came from. Because often these little things that happen in my life, you think, well, I know there's a story, and that's a potential for a bigger story that I can write. In this case, a novel about, and so that's how the Peanut stories start too. She's got a dad who does the same thing for her, but in the story, her dad has mysteriously disappeared, and there's a magic pencil where whatever you draw with this pencil becomes real. So of course, one day she draws a door with this magic pencil and it becomes real and she finds herself in an illustrated world and yada yada yada. The whole story sort of comes out. So you have your seed of an idea,
And
which
yours
in
was
this
the
case was
post-it
the
notes.
post-its. Yeah, that was the post-its, and then everything comes out of that before you know it. I've written 3 novels about it. So yeah, that's how these things start, at least with me anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that with Odd Dog Out, but we'll come to that.
Okay.
Because the first thing I was going to say is you're like super prolific.
I
You've
guess
got
so.
3 books out this month.
Yeah, I have. That is true. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't know
obviously
what.
you didn't write them all at the same time. They just happened to be
No,
out at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah. Well, I tell you what that is because in children's book world, and probably in all book world, of course, the autumn, September is prime publishing time
Yeah.
because Christmas is around the corner and gifting and all that kind of stuff. That's why I go on tour in autumn. I'm like, at the moment, I'm in the middle of this tour where I've every single weekend between now and I think the middle of November, I'm doing a different book festival somewhere
Well, I
in the
have
country.
noticed you are busier than Beyonce
I'm
touring.
busy than Beyonce. My live show, is very similar to Beyonce's,
Well, I
actually,
thought it might be.
slightly less dancing and singing. But hey, but yeah, I guess I'm prolific. I mean, my background prior to doing this, I had like a 20-year career working in magazines and newspapers. I was an art director, so I designed, the NME and Just 17. I don't know if you remember Just 17
I
magazine.
remember it well.
I was the art director on that, and
Wow.
The Observer as well. And so I think I'm quite good at deadlines. I think I've had this training where you have to hit your print deadlines if you're doing a magazine or a newspaper, right? And so I think my publishers seem to love me because I'm bang, bang, bang. I hit these deadlines, and because I'm quite efficient and quite fast, I think they,
Thanks
I
to
think they,
10,000 post-it notes.
yeah. Next, the 10th. Thank God I finished the post-it notes now. She's
Oh,
finished
that's
the
nice.
product. I don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, I think because I'm quite efficient, my publisher tends they sort of tend to rinse me a bit. And they get me
Yeah.
to do lots of books, which I like to. I like to be busy, and I love. It's nice. My books are different. I do picture books, I do the novels, and I also do the activity books. So they're all quite varied, and you use a slightly different part of your brain for each one. But you're right, I do have a lot, and they all seem to come out around the same time. I do have a lot. I think 4 books. Most years I'll be publishing 4 books and maybe illustrating a few bits and pieces for other people too, as well as doing the touring and the Draw with Rob
Yeah.
videos. So I have a busy year, but I love it. That's the way I like it to be.
So I don't know whether you met James, but you know that I used to work at the Bound in, sorry, I should say Forum Books in Corbridge.
War and Books,
So
I
you
remember.
hung out with
Yeah.
Helen once and did
I
a
did.
school
Had a day
tour.
with Helen. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when I was
Yeah.
chatting to James, who runs the Bound, he's the manager at the Bound. In fact, he would have been at Forum when you came up,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Ask Rob if there's anything he missed from journalism."
I
I bet it was
miss.
wild in the 90s.
I tell you what. Sorry, it's Ringo. My dog is behind me and he's scratching around and making a
Oh,
noise. So I can hear scratching around. It's not me, sort of. It's the dog scratching. What are you doing? Behave yourself. Do I miss anything from journalism? Yeah, in the when I my first job was Just 17, which was really fun. I met my wife there. Actually,
yeah,
she was the editor. But that was a really fun job. And the NME, when I was the art director on the NME, in sort of from about 2000 to 2005 ish, that was really fun. That was like going back to uni, really, because it was there was you can go to a different gig every night, and there was always cool parties and stuff to go to.
I bet.
It was really fun back then. And then I went to the Observer, which was much more kind of grown up and serious. But you were working with the best writers and photographers in the world, really, and doing really amazing long form pieces and that kind of thing. And so I do miss it. I do miss, especially at the Observer. It's a week every obviously out every Sunday, so there was a nice routine to it. The years you could break the years up by Christmas gift guide and then fashion weeks and then summer holiday guides and that kind of thing, and you would hit your marks every year. But and I miss the people. That's what I miss, because now I'm on my I'm here in my
Yeah.
little studio on my own for half the time, and the rest of the time I'm sort of out touring. So I've got a nice mix now, but I do miss the Monday morning around the coffee machine, sort of gossiping about whatever's happened over the weekend. I miss that. um, and the print journalism, people, unfortunately, when I first started, the magazines would sell that hundreds of thousands of copies, and the newspapers, everyone was reading newspapers, and now it's just not. The world's changed, hasn't it? Right? I mean, I hardly read a newspaper ever anymore. I read online. That's what we
Yeah.
do. And so it went from being a really, really exciting place to work to being somewhere where you were slightly worried about your job at all times, because they could close a magazine or a newspaper at any point. Um, but that's not why I started doing children's books. That was more, I just had this, I think I just had this creative impulse to be doing something that was coming from me. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you work on newspapers and magazines, you're part of a team, which is great. There's loads of great things about that. But I just wanted to. I had ideas and I had things that I wanted to do from me. And making children's books actually is a really satisfying outlet for a creative person, I think. I often say it's a bit like being, making a picture book, especially, is like making a film in lots of ways. I get to write the script, I get to cast this film, and I work on the plot, and I get to do, the lighting and that kind of thing. And pretty much I do it all myself, because I write and illustrate and I design the books. And what I do pretty much makes it straight through onto a bookshelf and into, thousands of people's hands. And I think that's quite a rare thing for a creative person, really. So I decided, I did a bit of children's illustration at uni, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go at writing a kids book, and then the rest is history. That was my first book. Came out nearly 10 years ago now, and here I am. Yeah. So that's a long. My answers are very long-winded, aren't they? I'm really sorry.
No, it's
Hopefully, you've got
lovely.
a good
I'm
edit.
really enjoying hearing what you've got to say, because I could never predict what you're going to say. So it's really
Oh,
interesting.
that's yeah.
Because I was going to ask you, like, why do you do what you do? And I guess it's come from that seed. But I guess what's actually happened is still a surprise. Like, even when you start a book, you don't know when you first
Yeah.
start what's going to happen.
Well, going right back to the beginning, I guess the reason I made a very deliberate and conscious decision to try and get a children's book published is because I was reading lots of books to my own children,
Mm-hmm.
bedtime stories, and that's what it kind of was. I had a bit of an epiphany. As I said earlier, they're such lovely things to make, and they really are work. Some of them are proper works of art.
Yeah.
And I just had this epiphany and was like, this is such a nice thing to do. I'm really going to have a go at doing it. And but it did take. I mean, it did take me a lot. I didn't realize how competitive that world is. You know, I'm sure you know people who've tried to write children's books and maybe not been published. Maybe some people have been published, but it's unbelievably competitive. It took me 5 years to get my first book published, and I got an agent straight away. I got in the room with every big publisher in London, you know, almost immediately. So I knew I was good enough, but I just could not get that first book over the line because it's so competitive. And I really didn't realize that. And eventually, you know, it was one of those things. My first book was called Blown Away, which was about a little penguin who flew a kite and got blown away across the sea. And that came about very quickly, purely by chance. I was taking other books around to publishers, and two or three publishers happened to spot this little drawing I'd done of a penguin in my portfolio that I can't even really remember doing. And they said, "We love that character. Can you come up with a story for him?" So I did and wrote it in about a week. And that's when I finally got book offers, you know, the book contract offers. And I signed a 3-book deal with HarperCollins. And then once you're on the conveyor belt, once you're over that first hump, you're kind of away. As long as your books are good and people like your books, you're kind of away. But it did, yeah, it did take a long time. And so I have lots of people now, friends of friends or friends on Facebook, or people just send me emails with their children's books. You know, so if you think about it, virtually every illustrator that's been to our college has tried to illustrate a children's book at one point. And you know, as I said, I know lots of people who try to, particularly picture books, try to write picture books, and that's when you realise just how competitive this world is, because I mean, it is a lovely thing to do, and I feel super lucky to be doing it full time. You know, this is my job.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of even published children's authors, you know, there's something they do in their spare time, because it's very hard to make enough money to make it your kind of full-time job. So I feel super, super lucky to be able to do that. Talking earlier about being so busy, I'm very lucky to be that busy, and I'm very aware of that. I think probably more aware of it because I've had another career beforehand, and also, you know, as I said, it was a struggle to get published. So I do feel lucky to be doing it. But it's a lovely, you know, now that I am doing it, it's lovely. I get to come to fabulous bookshops all over the country and meet children in the bookshops, meet the booksellers, do the festivals, you know, go to schools, visit lots of schools and that kind of thing, as well as, you know, sitting here and drawing sausage dogs for a living, you know. What's not to love?
So, speaking of sausage dogs, I have this
Oh,
notebook.
oh, look at that.
Yeah. And
Very
speaking of,
cool.
I've put in the front of it. So, this is 2017. I bought this.
Right.
From Foreign Books. It's still got £3.60 written on the back.
Fabulous.
You couldn't buy
Very
one of your
reason.
books for that now.
No, that's very
No way.
reasonably priced. Yeah. I am not in charge of pricing. I just want to put that out there. Please don't blame me.
Not at all. And I've even put in the front of it, I found this morning, Hannah's children's book. So obviously
Amazing.
everybody has a go.
So you've had a go at writing them?
I've had a go at writing a chapter book. So yeah, and that was around 2017 when I started, and I probably finished it in 2020.
Oh, did you?
But
And so what have you done with it? Have you sent it off to?
absolutely nothing.
This is the thing. The hardest bit is pressing send to
I
send
don't
it
even
out.
know who to send it to because I feel like it's
Well,
not finished. So
okay. Well, I'm going to tell you who to send it to. So
okay,
this is the thing. People don't know, but your route into being a published author is pretty much 90% of the time. You know, you get an agent first of all.
yeah.
So you send it out to literary agents. You just Google literary agents, children's literary agents. You'll find a load. You send it out to them. They all they read all submissions. It might take them a few months, and then if they see potential, then you will work with your agent on editing
Hmm?
and getting it into shape before they then submit it to publishers on your behalf. And your agent will take 15% of whatever they make for you. But honestly, they do all the negotiating, they do all that kind of stuff. So there are people who are unagented who make it happen. But I would say that easily the best way to do it is to send it out to an agent, because then you've got someone in your corner and someone
Yeah.
to work with. And I mean, I think the first time I sent it out, I didn't think it was finished. My first text, I think I sent 2 texts, finished, but they weren't perfect. Um, and it is very scary pressing send. It feels very, yeah, this is your baby, right? You spent years writing this, and it's very exposing to send it out to somebody. But at some point, if you do really want to become published, you have to take that leap. And don't,
Somebody's
I
gonna
mean,
have
I
to look at
remember,
it.
yeah, 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 and it's scary. It's very scary, but you should do it. I mean, that's what the vast majority of people who email, they haven't finished writing it. They've started but haven't finished. And then the ones that have are too scared to send it out to anybody. So they will send it to me, though, weirdly. They'll send it to me,
Yeah,
but they
because
won't
you've
send
got
it
loads
to a
of
publisher.
time.
I've got loads of time, but they won't send it to the person that matters, which is an agent or a publisher. Because either way, you need to know whether, you know, I mean, maybe that's why maybe they don't do it because they don't want, they fear, people probably fear being rejected. If it's been a dream for a long time, they don't want somebody to say you're not good enough.
Do you
But
know
you've
what?
got to find out,
I
right?
think there's two fears. One is it's shit.
Mhm.
The other is it's really good and you're going to be successful and you're going to have to go on the
Why is
tour.
that scary?
Do you not think
Oh,
that
the tour.
that's terrifying?
I didn't know about that when I got. I had no idea about going out on tour thing. I
Well, you
literally got I signed my book deal, and they told me about a week later, right, you've got to develop an act and go out on the road. And I was like, excuse me?
an
I mean,
act.
an act. I mean, we do. If you my events, it's a show. It's an hour long show. There's film and there's music and there's all, it's a proper now it is. At the beginning, it was much more basic, and over the years I've learned what kind of works. But I was the kid at school. I was never in the plays at school. I was never on stage. I did the posters for the plays. That was my job. So the idea of standing on a stage and talking to hundreds of, sometimes thousands of kids, yeah, if you'd have told me that before I'd started this journey, I probably would have. Maybe I would have not done it as well. But actually, it turns out it's one of my favorite bits. Standing up on stage, the bigger the audience, the better now for me, and I really love it because I'm talking about what I know, right?
Yeah.
And also with me, it does help the drawing, right? So when I draw, I always draw quite early on in my shows, and I think that children think drawing's a bit of a superpower. So once they see you can draw, like you've got them on side, right? It's kind of quite cool. Um, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it is yeah. You have to go out on tour. But if what age group are you writing for, adults or for children?
I've got two actually. So one book I'm writing is called How to Divorce Sober. So that's my
Oh, okay,
non-fiction memoir.
okay,
And then
right,
the book that I had written, which was part of the process of helping me get through those last few years of marriage.
yeah,
That one is like mid-grade.
right.
So yeah.
Well, quite often the middle grade books, and certainly your the divorce kind of help book. Your events would be much more kind of like this, just a conversation, Q&A on stage, which is fine, right? That's not scary. That's fine. I'd be really happy if I was sitting on stage with somebody just chatting away like this.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, for picture books and for my middle grade books, that never happens. It's just me on the stage doing the thing. But honestly, I love it. And you do this podcast, and you're great at talking to people. You'd be a total natural. Shouldn't be scared of that.
Do you not get stage fright?
Weirdly, no, no. I know it's really weird. I cannot believe I'm saying this to you because I mean, when I was working in magazines, they asked me to, go to conferences and talk to people, and I always said no because I was like, I'm not interested. I don't want to be up on the stage. But now I'm such a massive show off. I love it. I really do. But I think it's because I have my show, my show. I've got it. I know it so well. I know the funny bits. I know when the punchlines hit, and I've got my PowerPoint up on a big screen behind me with all my slides. So I'm kind of, and that helps because all the eyes are usually on that because I've got so many illustrations and funny pictures of me when I was a kid and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That sort of takes the pressure off me a bit. And because I've been doing it for so long, and I know, my act changes every year a little bit with the books, but the main sort of thrust of it is pretty much the same. And so I feel very, before I go on stage, I feel confident that they're going to like it. I really do because they have done for
Yeah.
the past several years. So I really like it. Honestly, it's great.
I think as well, it's being totally aligned with what you want to do, like what you were saying before about you wanted this creative outlet because that's you. And so
Yeah.
because you're on it, it then makes talking about it and connecting with people so much easier.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. If I had to go on tour and talk about, the Cold War or something, it might be a different kettle of fish. But I'm talking about stuff, I know, and it's all about me and my life and my career. And so, yeah, as you can tell, I talk a lot about myself. I'm quite good at it. Well, I don't know if I am good at it, but
I think you're all right.
I talk a lot.
Did you have to go through a process of being like, oh, I'm a show off? Or
Um,
were you just like, yeah, it's fine?
no, really, no. I don't know if it's showing off. I mean, that's kind of no,
I
it's
say
not.
it's
It's not
I say
really.
it's called showing off because that's how I
Yeah.
feel it is.
Well,
Because when you're a kid, you know, and you get pulled up
yes.
and like, stop being a show off, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh, but
yeah.
I am.
Well, I use the word. I said earlier, didn't I? I said, it turns out I'm a big old show off. But I guess it's just, the kids want to know. The show that I'm doing starting this autumn is basically because you have to think of ways of sort of structuring the show. So it's because I like to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the way I've structured this one is I basically answer the 5 questions that I get asked the most because I get sent emails every day and I get lots of letters and school events, hands go up. So I basically worked out what the 5 most popular questions are, and I've managed to structure my show around that and make it quite funny, and that kind of thing. For example, the first question the most popular question I get asked is to say, "Where's Ringo, my dog?" Because
It's
Ringo makes
Ringo.
little. Where's Ringo? Why haven't you bought Ringo? They basically like Ringo much more than they like me. So I have this whole bit at the beginning about, but yeah. So it's sort of I feel like I'm just giving them what they want.
Yeah.
They want to know where Ringo is. They want to know what pens I use in my videos. They want to do a draw along with me live, which we always do, a draw with an episode of Draw with Rob live, which is great. And then I read them one of my stories, and they want to know how I got this job. So I have this whole bit of, with pictures of me when I was their age and drawings I did at their age, and it's all very self-deprecating and taking the mick and out myself really, and they love that. But I think I tell you what really helps with the live stuff, and you won't even know that you're good at it, but you will be good at it. Children's parties, right? If you had loads, I bet you've had loads. You've had a house full of like 30 kids at some point, and you're playing
Many
parts of party
times.
many times, right? So you know how to talk to groups of children. You just do. Because that's honestly, I am so used to taking the mick out of all my daughter's friends at parties and stuff. And you work out that you don't talk down to children. You just sort of, I always treat them like adults, sort of rib them and take the mickey out of them. And the kids love that. And so I bet you would be really, really good at it because you've had lots of practice, whether you know it, you realize it or not. I'm full of admiration for children's authors that go out on tour that don't have children. They might be in their 20s, and yet they're still really good at it. Because I don't think I would have been pre-children. I wouldn't have been anywhere near as good as I am talking to kids as I am as a result of having children of my own.
Do you not think children's authors maybe never grew up? A little bit.
Oh yeah,
Because I still
totally.
feel like I'm a little bit 12.
Yeah, totally. I'm definitely. I am like 90% 10-year-old still.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like I was at a
That's
kids' party yesterday and I literally spent the whole time in soft play.
yeah.
And whenever I'm on
Me
the
too.
beach, I always end up with like a gang of kids all digging in the
Yeah.
same direction. And
Exactly. We were out on Saturday night. We went to a friend's house for dinner, and we didn't have my girls didn't want to come. Of course, they didn't. They're like
they're
14,
so
and
old.
they didn't want to come. But there was 2 other couples there, and they've got younger kids, and so the kids were all there playing football in the garden, and the grown-ups were talking about their big jobs in the city and all that stuff. I was playing football with the kids.
Yeah.
That's what I like. But definitely, I mean, I think in order to write for children as well, you have to be able to tap into that part of your brain, the part of your brain that is 5 or 10 years old. That's just what you have to do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. My dad's like that. My dad's still like that. He's like a big kid, and I think it's great.
Oh, definitely. It's much better than being a grown-up.
Yeah, grown-ups rubbish.
But you do still have to, because I'm thinking about Odd Dog Out, and so that's probably the first time I came into contact with your books, and it wasn't because of Tom Hardy.
Oh, really?
It was
Really? You
before.
say that. You
It was
say that.
before he read it on CBBC.
Right. Okay. My wife is still so cross with me about that. She was like, "Why could I not get an invite to the filming?
Why didn't you tell me?
Why didn't you tell me?" I was like, "I didn't. Well, I knew he was doing it, but they didn't. I wasn't allowed to go to the filming. I'm really sorry, but
I mean, how
yeah,
cool is that?
it's pretty cool, isn't it? It is pretty cool, and he read it so brilliantly to the point where now when I read it at my events, I try and
You
do
try
it.
and sound like him.
I try and replicate kind of his cadence. You know, if I can't replicate what he looks like, unfortunately, but I can replicate his kind of cadence. But yeah, it was very cool. And I think I've had like five of my books have been CBB's bedtime stories.
Maybe you have,
Actually,
yes.
Tom's read two
All
of mine.
them.
It's not quite all of them, but Tom because I call him Tom because
Yeah.
we are mates. We've had a bit of banter on Instagram, so I think that means we're mates, right? He's read two of mine. He's read Odd Dog Out, and I did a Christmas Odd Dog book called An Odd Dog Christmas, and he read that as well a couple of years ago. And I've also had Chris Kamara, the football.
Yes. I've seen that one as well.
You've seen that one,
Yeah.
and I've had Mark Bonner, who's an actor, and Rick Astley read one of mine. That was quite fun.
The one and
but
only.
none of them. I mean, I must say, my friend Tom's delivery is on point. He's
so,
very,
are
very...
you planning an Odd Dog Out, Easter, Halloween? What else can we have? Summer holiday, just so we can get
my
mate
wife
back
is
on.
telling me just write Odd Dog Out books, just in case I get to go to the filming one day. I don't know. I know I probably won't do any more Odd Dog books actually, but but the Tom Hardy factor was huge. It was a big deal. You know, mums. I'm going to say it. Lots of mums got to know my books because of the Tom Hardy stuff. But that's fine.
But
right?
genuinely, it wasn't him.
Okay, I believe you.
I did. I mean, I've got this from, and I think the date I've put in here is the 21st of March, 2017. Right. So that's before he was on.
That is before. Okay, so, right.
But yes, I think reading that book, I don't know, it just kind of blew my mind because there was such lovely messages in it that I just wasn't expecting. So the whole thing around, it felt like you were dealing with prejudice, racism, how to be yourself, all in one small amount of words.
And that was the idea really. It started very again.
How did it start? Was it theme, character, or I need to tell a story about racism?
It was. I tell you what, in my head, it wasn't really racism so much as like homophobia. Actually, that's why I gave the dog the rainbow scarf. Okay, but it was about. I'll tell you how it started. Poppy, youngest, again when she was first starting at school, maybe in year one. By this point, there was a big to do about packed lunch boxes, right? About 3 of her friends had the same packed lunch box. I can't remember. I think maybe Dora the Explorer or something like that. And Poppy had a different one, and she was very upset about this. She wanted the same as everyone else so that she could be part of the gang and fit in. So I sort of sat there and said, "Do you know what, Poppy? It's much better to be yourself. You know, blaze your own trail, be who you are, and you don't need to, just follow the crowd. You know, be yourself." And I was like, that's a really, really important message for children, right, at that young age. And so I decided to put it into a story. And I decided quite early on that it was going to be set in a world that was entirely populated by sausage dogs. Now that's the slight leap, right? I don't know why that. I think I just liked drawing sausage dogs, right? And I just thought that's a good thing to do. And then pretty soon the title came, Odd Dog Out. I thought, well, that's a nice, catchy title. Mm-hmm. And then the story really is, occasionally you have it that the story just comes really, really quickly and really easily. It just sort of pours out of you. Sometimes it takes, 6 months to write a text that takes, 5 minutes to read. It's, getting the rhyme working and everything. But Odd Dog Out came very, very quickly, which I think is a good sign. And yeah, it really has resonated with, out of all of my books, that's the one I think that's resonated with the most people. I was in Russia. I did in 2018, so before all this horrible stuff. I did a tour of Russia. I went to Moscow and St. Petersburg and book festivals and schools and things in Russia. And I was at the Moscow Book Festival with Odd Dog Out. I did a reading of it for with the parents of the kids, and then we did a signing afterwards. And I had this huge signing queue, and interestingly, there were some kids in the queue, but there was lots of adults, and it turns out there was quite a lot of gay people in my queue who really were saying to me, with tears in their eyes, you don't understand how important this book is for us and for our children, because to be gay in Russia is not, I don't think it's illegal to be gay, but it's certainly illegal to be demonstrative of the fact that you're gay. And so my book really skated a kind of, it was a thin line between it being published and it being banned, because it wasn't overtly pro-gay enough to get banned, but the message in there, whether it's whatever it is that people think it's about difference, right? It's about points of, it's about the fact that it's not bad to be different. It's more important to be who you are, whether that's to do with your race or your gender or your sexuality or whatever it is. It's about acceptance. And honestly, my wife was with me on that tour, and both of us were in tears at the end of this festival, because so many people were just saying it's so important. And you write these books with these messages in them, and you hope that it lands with people. But it works on both levels. Some people just think it's a nice story about sausage dogs, but you hope that it lands, and to see it land in such an extraordinary way over in Russia was incredible, and it makes the whole thing, it makes everything so gratifying, and worthwhile to think that you are doing something, no matter how small, to help people be who they are. It's a lovely thing. So it's lovely to hear you saying that you had that reaction to the book too, because it makes me think, oh, it worked.
Yeah, I feel like everybody can take their own version of what it means to them.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yes, yeah, really good. So, to sort of coming towards an end, thank you so much for coming and chatting to me.
Okay.
But what do you think was the hardest thing you've had to overcome? I guess it could be through your publishing career, but also, I guess, life, parenting. It sounds like you've had a few challenges within.
I had a few challenges. Well, parenting and relationships, they're really tricky. They can be really tricky, can't they? You have to really work through them. I'm very lucky that Ali, my wife, and I have had. I mean, we had a very difficult start to our relationship, because Ella, my oldest, she's my stepdaughter. So Ali had Ella when I met her, and she was in various kind of tricky situations with relationships and that kind of thing. So it was quite a sort of difficult and slightly messy start to our relationship. And because there was a child involved at the beginning, I had, obviously I really liked my wife, but there was quite a few kind of commitment issues. I think at the beginning I was quite young. I'm a bit younger than her. I was quite young, and if I was going to commit to this relationship, then I really had to be sure that I was able to commit 100%, because there was a child involved, right? And so that's probably, in my life, the most difficult part of my life, I'd say, when I first got together with my wife. Of course, once I then did manage to commit fully to this relationship, everything suddenly became very easy again. So I was kind of like, it was me versus myself in that kind of situation. And it was tricky. And you still have every relationship. You have ups and downs. I've got 3 daughters of it's quite a wide age span there. So it's like, and they each have, children like everyone. Each child is different. Each child has their own little foibles and own kind of challenges. But we've been very lucky with our kids, and we've managed to kind of steer them through life so far pretty well. But I just think life is one big challenge, right? It's one big kind of series of obstacles that you have to overcome and somehow maintain your sanity and your happiness as well as your career, your ambition and that kind of thing. Um, but I
Yeah.
think my wife and I, we're quite a good team. When I first left the Observer newspaper, which I had this really good job on the Observer, I've been there for 10 years, but I decided I wanted to take the leap to do children's books full time. My wife uh, was freelance. She's a journalist too. She was the editor of Just 17. That's how I met her. But she, freelance journalist. She took a full time job, having been freelance for a long time, in order for me to sort of switch. So I would do the school runs and look after the kids and that kind of thing while I was working at home on the books, and she would take a full time job. So it's been quite a nice. We've sort of dovetailed quite nicely in terms of careers and childcare and that kind of thing. Um, Sort of by design, but also sort of by luck, really, as well. And it's kind of worked. Touch wood. So far, it's worked quite well. Um, so yeah, I'd say that beginning part of my relationship with my wife was the trickiest part of my life. Much trickier. You then compare that to trying to get a book deal, which at the time seems huge, and I have had many days of despair that it's never going to happen and that kind of thing. Because in a way, with me, it was harder being so close, getting very close to being published early on, and then not being published for years was
Yeah.
worse than just getting them straight no, I think. But I think when I compare that to, the difficult decisions you have to make at the beginning of your relationship with a child involved, it sort of pales into insignificance, really. So, there you go.
Mm. And do you have any? So you've got older kids than me now. Any parenting advice? Like, I'm pretty scared about having a teenage girl, I'll tell you that.
Have I got any parenting advice? I mean, you know, it sounds very, very obvious, but just keep a dialogue open with your children at all time. All times. We try and, I don't. How old are your kids again? So yours
I've got
are.
an 11-year-old son and a 4-year-old
So as
daughter.
your 11-year-old started at secondary
He's
school,
just started.
just started. So did you give it the big? Did you give it? Has he got a mobile phone? You
He
got a
does,
phone now.
yeah.
So has he had a phone for a little while?
He got it for his 11th birthday.
Oh, okay. Same as us. As got the phone when they went to secondary school,
Hmm.
which I think is very important that they don't have a phone before that, because then they're sort of in this other world, right? But secondary school, our kids 10, 15 minutes, no, half an hour journey to secondary school, we wanted them to have a phone, for the journey to school and stuff. And then it's just about trying to manage I mean, the trickiest thing really these days with parenting is their online life, right?
Yeah.
Versus real life. You really, I don't have any magic answers to how you police that. But we were very much like, right, the phone stays downstairs when you go to bed at
Hmm.
night, that kind of thing. Um, because we have had one or two instances with my older two, especially of not it's not bullying exactly, but like particularly seems to happen with. I don't have any boys, so I don't know what it's like with boys, but with girls, there's a lot of friendship issues that happen at school where somebody gets left out and blah 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 blah. Blah. So
Yeah.
we've had a lot of that. But as I say, keeping a dialogue open and just being very open with them, and hopefully they are trusting of you enough to kind of confide in you when there are these problems. I think that's the best thing you can do. Just try and be there for your kids, which everyone tries to do, right? And
Hmm.
uh, I
It's
don't
the
know.
balance, though, isn't it? You're like, right, I'm really throwing myself into work, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, I haven't cleaned any clothes, and
Yeah. Oh yeah. Kind of.
there's a
Yeah.
packed lunch that I've forgotten about, or apparently it was
Yeah.
swimming
Oh,
today, and
oh, that right. That happens all the time, right? That happens all the time, and that's
yeah,
normal. And that's a kind of a, I guess the key is to not blow those things out of proportion and give yourself too much of a hard time about all that kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
I guess. Um, but I don't know. We just, we're all just doing the best that we can, right? And at the end of the day, you just want your child to be happy, to be socialized, to be, I kind of think, I have friends who are really, they're proper like helicopter parents. They're like always like on the shoulder of their child, like do this, do that. They're tutored to within an inch of their lives when they're kind
yeah,
of like 10 years old or whatever. And you kind of, I mean, great, each to their own. But I kind of think it's all very well being very, maximizing how good you're going to be at maths and at English and that kind of thing. But it's much more important, I think, particularly at primary school age, to be socialized, to have friends, to know how to talk to people. And I kind of almost think that all the way through school, actually, one of the main things that you learn, and one of the main jobs of a parent, is to make their child a nice, kind, thoughtful person that goes out into the world, because no matter how much tutoring and how brilliant the school that you go to is, and how brilliant your exam results are, and whether you get into a red brick university, at the end of the day, you're going to be doing a job with other human beings, and people will judge you on the things that you say and you do and the way that you act. So I think that's our main job as parents, to make decent human beings.
All you have to do is make a decent human.
There you go. Job done. Tick.
Tick. Read Rob's books to them, and that'll help as well.
That's what you should do. That's what I should have said. Yeah, that's my answer. How to be a good parent. Just read all of my books.
Read my books. I've put all the pearls of wisdom into them.
They have. They're all distilled. All wisdom distilled into my little books about sausage dogs and penguins. There you go.
Well, so you've got Peanut Jones out. Is it the end of the week? Do you like my pencil?
That's so good. Oh, is that one of those ones with the multicoloured?
Yeah, it's got a multicoloured.
Yeah, they're good.
Obviously, I've never used it. God forbid.
No.
But I'm very much looking forward to the third instalment.
Third and final one. Yeah, you're right. It's out this Thursday.
Yes.
At the time of recording. This Thursday coming. Means that
this is going to go out tomorrow.
Oh, is it? There we go. Then. It's out in a few days' time. Yeah, and it's the final instalment of the trilogy. So I'm looking forward to see what people think.
I'm excited about that.
Whether you always worry that you won't stick the landing with these things, especially when the book's been, a popular book. The first two books.
Mainly down to me. I have hand sold so many copies of that book.
Really. I did hear that it was mainly down to you, so I do.
Yeah, so you're welcome. Yeah.
Thanks.
Even the other day, I went into the Bound with Nancy to go buy a book, and then a woman was like looking around, and I was like, "You okay?" I wasn't working; I was just in the shop, and she was like, "I'm just trying to find some books for my kid." She's like, "She's just turning 10," and I was like, "Well, get these two," and it was like the first two of yours.
Oh, that's so amazing. I mean, booksellers are just the best people ever. In my experience, I think I've ever met a not lovely bookseller. They're such nice people. I always think bookshops seem like the nicest ever place to work, personally, I think. That's what I would like to do. If I wasn't doing this job, I think I'd go and work in a bookshop.
Go work in a bookshop. Yeah, it is lovely. Yeah. Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for hand selling my books.
It's very, very welcome. It's a pleasure. And it's genuine. Like, I wouldn't...
Yeah, you wouldn't try and hand sell them rubbish, I suppose.
No way. I've read plenty of them. And I'm like, don't get that one.
Yeah.
Shh, don't tell anyone. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate speaking to you, Rob. And
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I should say thank you to Louise, who's a mate of mine from years back, who you were on her thing called What Need Where Feed.
Oh, yes.
And that's how the link happened, because she had tagged me in a thing saying that she'd found Peanut Jones because of me, obviously.
Because of you. There you are.
Yeah, and then it helped this connection happen. So I'm really appreciate for that little bit of divine intervention. Thanks.
I'm very glad to have met you. It's been really fun.
Yeah, well, thank you ever so much. All right, then. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again next time for another episode of Happily Ever After with me, Hannah. It would be amazing if you could leave a review and subscribe. And of course, if you've got a friend who might enjoy this episode, please do pass it on. For anything else, you can get in touch with me through Instagram at mumsdays or by my website, mumsdays.com. And did you know that I've got a newsletter? So it's the best way to stay in touch and to make sure you don't miss any podcasts or any freebies or competitions that we're running. And again, you can sign up to that through the website.